Halloween is a magical time with a feeling and a vibe different than any other part of the year. The creepy decorations, the scary movies, and the fun TV specials all make the Halloween season feel magical, and no decade did it better than the 90s. That decade has some of the best Halloween-related media and products out there, including iconic commercials, fast food toys, TV specials both animated and live action, fun movies, creepy books, and so much more. And let's start with the commercials, because it's not Halloween without fun and spooky TV ads. The 90s was known for many fun and colorful TV ads. Everything was extreme back then, very over the top, and very colorful. Commercials weren't boring and bland like they often are now, and the Halloween ads were pure joy. I remember fondly the Pizza Hut ads featuring Pizza Head, like the one where he is taken to a haunted mansion, and as always, horrible things happen to him. And the Universal Monsters had a huge presence in the 90s, and that included ads like the Pepsi one, with Frankenstein lifting up a Pepsi truck, and the ads for the Burger King toys. But the most iconic commercials for most people tend to be the ones about decorations and ornaments. And every store imaginable would go all out on Halloween, selling decorations, costumes, candy, and even toys and knickknacks. Walgreens is synonymous with Halloween for me. K-Mart is more synonymous with Christmas, but Walgreens is pure Halloween. And the pumpkin pail you see in this ad, I had that growing up. And it had some of those dangling ornaments that have a plastic head, but a body made of cloth. And I also had that witch in the rocking chair, and the Frankenstein too. We rebought them like 5 years ago. My brother displays the Frankenstein every year without fail, and I have the witch right here. You know what? Let's keep going with decorations. The old school cardboard cutouts were very common back then, and have made a renaissance of sorts in recent years. Same goes for blow molds. But yes, the cardboard decorations always give Halloween a special vibe and a feeling back then, like the ones made by the Beistle company. And they were always used at school to decorate the classrooms, and Peanuts was always a staple as well, both during Halloween and Christmas. Fast food companies would always get in the Halloween spirit. McDonald's had a great toy line of their mascots dressed as Halloween characters, like Frankenstein's monster and a ghost. And the costumes were removable so they could work as figures of the characters in their regular outfits. And I have 3 of them here on display, minus the costumes. Here's the Ronald figure, and it's amazing, and I have always loved it, and I always will. And let's not forget the iconic McDonald's Halloween Pails, and they still make them to this day, almost every year. I have some from a few years ago, but I do wish they would make nugget toys more often, and the mascots as well, the McDonald Land characters. And Universal Monsters had a great line of figures at Burger King. It was Frankenstein with a light up head, Dracula, the Wolfman, and the creature from the Black Lagoon. I have the Wolfman, which I bought recently at a retro video game and toy store, and one day I'll get the other 3. And a lot of great toy lines were made in the 90s that work well as decorations for Halloween, like the Sleepy Hollow figures, Resident Evil figures, Universal Monsters merchandise, and Peanuts Great Pumpkin Toys by Memory Lane, and much more. Toys make for great decorations, as long as they are either creepy and or Halloween related. Let's dive into Goosebumps. This iconic series turned R.L. Stine into one of the most famous authors of modern times, and these books were and still are an anthology series where every book tells a completely different story. I used to read these books a lot, and I was obsessed with them, and the colorful and delightfully weird artwork by Tim Jacobus is ingrained in my mind forever. And the show was great too. It aired on TV for 4 years and had 74 episodes, and it started with the fan-favorite adaptation of the Haunted Mask episode, which features the terrifying situation of putting on a horrifying mask and the mask not coming off, and eventually it starts to take over and possess you. And while aimed at kids, Goosebumps could be quite disturbing at times, like with that episode and that novel. But you know what was even more intense than the Goosebumps show? Are You Afraid of the Dark, which was always a staple in Nickelodeon during Halloween time. Are You Afraid of the Dark is also a horror anthology show, much like Goosebumps, but it focused less on monsters and tended to be less over the top and more unsettling than Goosebumps, and creepier, and quite often featured very sad and tragic ghost stories that revolved around some unfinished business that the ghost needed to deal with before it could move on. The one that creeped me out the most was the tale of the shiny red bicycle. For whatever reason, I found this ghost very unsettling, but all the ghost episodes were creepy and very, very sad. And when they did monster episodes, they always looked awesome and they tended to be creepy instead of silly. And while it was an anthology show, it did have some recurring elements, like the shopkeeper Sardo and the mysterious Dr. Vink, who changed from episode to episode. One day he could be a retired filmmaker who had possessed film reels, and the next week he was a cook who could harness the fear of his employees and put it into the soup. And one of his victims included Scream actors Neve Campbell. But time to go back to books, because it wasn't just Goosebumps. This was a decade full of fun, spooky books aimed at kids. and I remember buying many books from the Scholastic order list that the English teachers would hand out every month. And every time there was a book about ghosts, especially if it was real-life ghost stories, I would get it. And many people's favorite ghost book in the 90s was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by Alvin Schwartz. It was a collection of scary short stories and folk tales and urban legends. And some of them were quite disturbing, in large part thanks to the horrifying artwork by Stephen Gamel. And these books helped make me into a lifelong fan of American legends, folk tales, and ghost stories in general. And you can also thank all the great documentaries that would air on TV about ghosts and legends on channels like Discovery, TLC, and Travel Channel for making me a fan of all this stuff. And that's a topic that I need to cover fully another day in another video. But yes, I miss the good old days of proper ghost content on TV. Now all we get is shows that are essentially ghost hunters, but with other people. I miss documentary series like Weird Travels, and Castle Ghost of the British Isles, and the Ghost and Legends episodes of Unsolved Mysteries. And hear me out when I say that Unsolved Mysteries is the perfect show to watch during Halloween, especially the Ghost, UFO, and Legends episodes, and cryptids, and monsters. And the show is available to watch in many places, so do yourself a favor and watch the show. And long live Robert Stack, a legend. Universal Monsters had a big presence in the 90s, thanks to the movies getting various VHS re-releases and also being staples on cable TV. And as I mentioned earlier, there were toys at Burger King, and Hasbro made figures as well. And there were plushies at CVS of many of the key characters. And old movies in general were always running on TV during Halloween, both big movies and low-budget B movies. Mad Monster Party from Rankin Bass, and slashers like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween with the intense villain that is Michael Myers. And the 90s also had some great new movies that would become Halloween staples over the years, but more on that later. Let's jump to TV for now. Nickelodeon was a huge part of 90s kids' childhoods, and they made tons of Halloween specials back in the day. And one of the most fun and memorable ones was the Rugrats Halloween episode. The parents are making a haunted house for the trick-or-treaters, but the babies have their own Halloween goals. They get their hands on some Reptar chocolate bars, and by the end of the episode, Angelica and Grandpa get scared out of their minds, and the babies get their hands on their Reptar bars, which turned your tongue green, by the way. Other Halloween specials were made for the Rugrats later on in the 2000s, including a fun one where they crossed over with the Audio Monsters. And plenty of spooky episodes were made in general, like the one where they think Stu is a robot, but he's just sleepwalking. But it's the 90s Halloween special that is ingrained in my mind the most. And one of the best Halloween specials Nickelodeon ever made was Doug's Halloween Adventure, which has Doug, Skeeter, and Roger exploring a haunted ride at Funky Town. And I always loved the design of the ghost of Bloodstone Manor. I've always enjoyed ghosts and specters wearing black hoods. Maybe it's because of Emperor Palpatine and my love of Star Wars in general. Another great special is the Hey Arnold special, which was obviously inspired by the War of the Worlds incident from the 1930s, where people thought that a radio play was an actual alien invasion. In this case, it's the kids dressed up as aliens that create a town-wide incident. And I'm pretty sure that those alien designs were inspired by the aliens in the Star Trek pilot The Cage, aka the Talosians. Series creator Craig Bartlett must be a Trekkie. And this show had tons of awesome creepy episodes made throughout its whole run, all of them featuring a different urban legend, like the Headless Cabbie, the Murderous Bride, the Ghost Underneath the Boarding House, the Haunted Train, and many more. And all those episodes are incredible, and you should not ignore them. They're some of the best episodes in the entire series, and that's a great series. Like, I could make a whole video about Hey Arnold, but for now, I'll just leave it at that. Go watch all the Hey Arnold creepy episodes. All of them. And Rocko's Modern Life had a Sleepy Hollow inspired episode, but instead of having a Headless Horseman, they had a Hopping Hessian. An Audio Monsters pilot episode was set around Halloween time, and has Crumb and Oblina mistaking a human for their friend Ickis, and Ren and Stimpy were being haunted by a very ineffective ghost. And Pete and Pete try to break a record of most houses visited during Halloween night, and Clarissa sets up a fake seance, and a dangerous specter called Zeke the Plumber terrorizes everyone in Salute Your Shorts. Nick had the best 90s specials, without a doubt. The 90s and the early 2000s had tons of shows that worked well on Halloween, like Big Wolf on Campus and The Sack Files on Fox Family, and So Weird on the Disney Channel, and Erie, Indiana on NBC, The New Addams Family on Fox Family, and as mentioned earlier, Goosebumps is great for Halloween, and Are You Afraid of the Dark and Audio Monsters on Nickelodeon are also great. And let's not forget the more teen and adult-oriented shows like Tales from the Crypt and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Kids WB and Cartoon Network had their marathons of creepy episodes, like airing ghost Pokemon-related episodes of Pokemon. And Cartoon Network would air great specials too, both new ones of cartoons, and classics like from the Hanna-Barbera library and Looney Tunes as well. And yeah, let's not forget about the classics. because if you watched a lot of TV in the 90s, you would obviously watch reruns of older shows. And it was not Halloween if you weren't watching Garfield's Halloween Adventure from 1985. And it was very fun seeing Garfield and Odie running into ghost pirates while trick-or-treating. And Peanuts is just as synonymous with Halloween as it is with Thanksgiving and Christmas. And Linus's obsession with the Great Pumpkin, and Snoopy's imaginary adventures, and Charlie Brown getting nothing but rocks for Halloween is something that no Halloween lover ever forgets. And Ghostbusters had a very fun and nearly apocalyptic Halloween special in the 80s that many of us saw in the early 90s. And there were many cool 80s TV movies to watch as well during the 90s, like Mr. Boogedy 1 and 2 on ABC, which would re-air on Disney Channel. And the list goes on. There was always something old and fun airing on TV during the 90s. The 90s had a ton of great sitcom specials to watch. The Halloween slasher episode of Boy Meets World is one of the most memorable episodes of that amazing sitcom, and it had Jennifer Love Hewitt in it, and having Jennifer Love Hewitt in a show or a movie is never a bad thing. And Family Matters' most memorable spooky episodes were the ones where a possessed dummy of Steve, named Steve-O, will come to life and try to kill everyone. And Roseanne had many elaborate Halloween episodes. I think it was one per season. And The Simpsons had their yearly Treehouse of Horror anthology episodes. And South Park has had many great Halloween episodes, started with the one where the town is overrun by zombies. Both of those animated sitcoms are still making Halloween episodes to this day, and it was fun back then also seeing reruns of older spooky shows, like the original Addams Family and The Monsters. And those are two very classic sitcoms, and they don't get old. They're still funny, even now, decades and decades later. Time for Halloween movies both for the big screen and the small screen. Nightmare Before Christmas came out in 1993 and has become the most iconic Halloween movie of all time. And it has made Jack and Sally and the rest of the characters into Halloween icons, and some of the most used characters as decorations. And Disney also released Hocus Pocus, which sadly flopped in theaters, but over time it became a cult classic and a Halloween staple thanks to reruns on Disney Channel and the VHS, the DVD, digital, streaming, all that good stuff. And Halloween Town was one of the many Halloween-related Disney Channel movies, and it had big icons in it, like Debbie Reynolds and Judith Hoag from Ninja Turtles. And just like Hocus Pocus, it has become a huge Halloween movie over the years, thanks to it and its sequels being staples on Disney and ABC Family, and now Freeform. But the list goes on in terms of TV movies. We have Under Wraps, the one with the mummy, and we have Susie Q with Amy Jo Johnson from the Power Rangers. But the biggest and creepiest TV movie of the 90s has to be Stephen King's It, with Tim Curry as Pennywise the Clown. And we can thank this movie for the disappearance of Ronald McDonald, Bozo, and all the other happy clowns, because millions of people who grew up with this movie have a very different image and idea about what clowns are than people who grew up before 1990. Now clowns are mostly portrayed in a scary way than a nice way, and in theaters we got some new and scary movies, like Tim Burton's take on Sleepy Hollow, and Wes Craven's Scream, with Party of Five's Neve Campbell, and now Ghostface is one of Halloween's most famous faces. And there were many spooky games this decade, like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. Resident Evil was more gory, while Silent Hill was more focused on psychological horror. And many colorful games had spooky stages in them, like all the Boo stages in the Mario games. But the list goes on. We had Doom, Splatterhouse, Clock Tower, the Castlevania games, and many more. Some of the most popular costumes that decade were the Ninja Turtles, who were still very popular when the decade started, and Batman, who is always a Halloween staple every year in every decade. But in 1993, Halloween was dominated by the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, who had taken America and the world by storm. I was the Red Ranger one Halloween at a party at school, but I only have pictures of me as a scarecrow from one school activity where the whole class was forced to be a scarecrow. Halloween was, and still is, very special, but the 90s was just magical, in every way, and I will never forget all the amazing, spooky, and fun things that we enjoyed every October of that decade. The TV specials, the books, the shows, the movies, and much more. Long live the 90s, and long live Halloween. Thank you for watching, it means a lot, it always does. Let me know in the comments your favorite Halloween memories and what 90s Halloween elements were your favorite. Feel free to check out our previous Halloween video about toys as Halloween decorations, and be on the lookout for more holiday videos in October, November, and December, because we're also doing Thanksgiving and Christmas this year. So keep an eye out on our holiday playlist since it will keep being updated. And if you like Halloween, the 90s, and you're a nostalgic person, then this is your channel. Please consider subscribing, and once again thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.